Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. Another great episode. I love what they did with this episode. This episode had a very, creepy and dark vibe to it, especially, in particular, you got it with both Josie's story as well as Archie and Jughead's story. I feel like they kind of had that creepy, dark feel to them. I thought it was kind of interesting. I love how they broke this episode down like that. It was in sections of Archie and Jughead, Josie, and then Veronica and Betty like that. And I do like the fact that you do see the stories kind of intertwined, because you see at one point where you see Cheryl and Josie pushing Archie and Jughead out of the side, but you saw that in Jughead and Archie's side of the story. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But a lot to kind of break down over this episode. Obviously, first of all, let's talk about the whole Archie and Jughead situation. Jughead messed up not checking in on what Penny wanted him to do. Saying, oh, your dad's hurt. It's Jughead could have easily checked it out himself. But the point is, he's a kid, so he's oh no, you're in that situation where you kind of believe anything an adult would tell you. But then again, it's Riverdale, so it's kind of at this point in time, it's you shouldn't trust what any adult says, especially her, considering your dad gave you a warning about her. But the fact of the matter is, it's Jughead is well, she's doing everything. Why would she lie about something like that? So I guess that just kind of plays into Jughead's nature, just well, she helped me out, so obviously she can't be that bad. Dad told me to steer away from her, so I stayed away from her, but obviously she's asked me to do this one thing, and it's all for the sake of helping my dad. But then it's there's so many suspicious things about it. It's oh, don't ask what's in the crate, don't look into it's just kind of a small favor. But it's kind of on Jughead for not looking, but you can't really blame him too. Like I said, she seemed like she might be, an ally and stuff like this. But I did not, I saw it in the previews, but I still didn't expect that hard twist like she did. She's blackmailing him to help, because the recording of them dropping off that crate doesn't just incriminate him, it also incriminates Archie as well. So, and just on that dark side of her, and it's why, and you have Joe being why are you doing this? She's because your dad owes me, he promised me something, and now that debt's being passed on to Jughead. So it's now you're going to do what I say. Because it seems basically she's making, because the whole plan initially was that the Serpents were going to kind of join forces with the Ghoulies, but most of the high-ranking Ghoulies have gotten taken out of the picture because of what Archie did. And now that puts it in a situation of now I think Penny in particular is taking advantage of that. Because obviously I think the Serpents are probably agreeing with it. The whole aspect of them taking over what they were doing, kind of getting into the drug business, even though they kept out of it this entire time. It doesn't make you wonder what's going to happen now that Phillips is gone. What does that mean for Jingle Jangle anyway? Or are they moving on to something else? That is the question. Immediately my brain's thinking the reason why she did that is because she's a jilted lover. There was a past between her and FP that they were together, but maybe he ended up leaving her for Jughead's mom. And it's the fact is that he went off, left her behind, and started this happy family. Because we don't even know where she stands when it comes to the Serpents. It seems like she's a part of the Serpents, but anytime there was any meetings or anything like that, she was on the outskirts. So not less FP kind of banished her, so she has connections, but she's not fully into the group like she could be. And now that FP's out of the picture and Jughead's in this situation, she can blackmail him and move her way back up the ranks or something like that. I don't know. I still think just the way she's acting is the promise and everything makes me think this might have to do with something like family. Maybe we'll end up finding out that in actuality it might be a twist that Jughead isn't actually his mom's son, then in actuality that Penny's actually his mom. But again, would a mom really do that? Maybe this is all her twisted way of being close to him, or this is kind of it seems more so it's payback. So I don't think that's the case. Maybe it's a situation where it's she had to give up a baby, maybe for adoption or something, because of FP, and he ended up not being with her, it might be something like that. So it's punishing the whole family for his mistake. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what they do with that. Also, I love that they included Tony Todd in this, him being that creepy guy that picks him up. It's they nailed that. I said, he probably played I say arguably the creepiest part of this episode, him telling that story, having that dead deer. Oh, you didn't know it was a deer at the time. I figured it had to be an animal or something, but it's something he's no, don't look under that carp. And it's okay, Jughead, you come with me alone. And he brings up that creepy story of the Riverdale Reaper, which is kind of interesting. But obviously, if you're unfamiliar with Tony Todd, it's been a lot of things, but probably the thing growing up, the thing I knew him best from was from Candyman movies. Also, interesting enough, this wasn't until well after the fact I ended up finding out, but in season 2 of The Flash, when it came to Zoom, Tony Todd voiced him. Not like anytime Hunter Zolomon had like the mask on and was doing that distorted voice, that was Tony Todd. I had no idea in retrospect. It's like, oh my god, because he has that voice that like fits that. I'm like, oh, it was so cool finding that out. So I think that's just kind of interesting. That's also kind of the CW angle, but I think it has to be the whole Candyman angle. The reason why they also got him too. That's at least where my mind went. But that was so fascinating learning about the Riverdale Reaper. That the fact is, some dude went crazy and killed a family, and it's like, where did he go? I don't know. Some stories say that the town lynched him, so he's dead. Others saying went to California. Others saying he's still here in Riverdale, which could be a thing in itself. It might not even be connected to the Black Hood. Maybe this person is the Black Hood. They never really got a date on, like, Jughead never really got a date from, like, oh, when did that happen? So it's going to be something that he's definitely going to be looking into, because he wants to get, Archie's help with that, looking into it, because for him and Archie are still kind of little, especially after what Archie pulled with the whole Keller arresting the ghoulies and everything. But it does seem like they are kind of slowly coming back together, especially because it's like, oh, could you want to help me out with that? And it's like he's trying to bridge that gap again. It's like, no, like, you know, because it's like these circumstances have led them to where they are, and now they're not as close as they used to be. Just life and things are kind of getting in the way, especially because Archie's like, you know, what are you going to do with this Jug? Like, you know, because eventually this life will lead to either you getting locked up in prison or worse, you know, dead. So, and now, like, not only is her serpents getting mixed up in this whole drug game, even, like, you know, now Jug is the personal delivery boy for this whole situation. So that just makes matters worse. It's sad that he got set up like that in that particular situation. I wonder what he's going to do. Will he even tell his dad? I mean, I doubt there's much FP can do, because it also seems like a lot of people don't show it. Because that was the whole thing too. It's like, you know, my dad would never allow this whole Ghoulies merge, but it's like, well, FP's behind bars, so it's almost like, yes, it's fun. He's the leader and everything, but at the same time, it's like he's not here. We're taking responsibility while he's gone, so there's a whole situation. So I'm curious to see what that really means going forward. Like what Penny's doing, like how is she doing it? Does she have the serpent's backing, or would anyone talk down to her? Like, does she in the whole ranking system? Is she like the next in line next to FP? So will she kind of take control? We just kind of have to and wait and see. I guess, like, because I was immediately thinking about that deer, because, like, you saw Archie see, like, a bloody deer kind of walk by. I guess that was just kind of representation of, like, oh, yeah, like, I guess it's supposed to represent the deer that was, like, dead, that maybe this was connected to it, maybe it rubbed against it, whatever the case may be. Maybe it was just kind of supposed to represent, like, oh, like, Archie ended up tracking him down and helping, you know, Jug again. So I guess that's the whole situation of, like, I don't know, like, maybe that's what that's supposed to be. Like, it could have been like a foreshadowing or metaphor for their whole particular situation. It's kind of interesting because they were heading to Greendale. Like, this is our, like, next time seeing Greendale. We saw a little bit, and when it came to Grundy, but beyond that, we've never really tackled it at all. I don't know if they're ever going to bother, like, seeing a set from, like, little bits here and there. I doubt, like, because the show is Riverdale. It's focused all in Riverdale, so I don't think they'll ever really bother taking any looks anywhere else, you know, around that area. So, like I said, I'm very interested to see where that goes. Obviously, you had the Josie storyline. Obviously, her and Chuck. Didn't see that coming the way it did, like them actually bonding a little. It does seem like necessarily that Chuck is changed, but still it's like he's kind of been scummy in the past on multiple levels. So not just once, but twice. It's like he's been given a chance, but third time's a charm, I guess. I mean, you know, it seems like things are going better. He's taking art. He's going to church and everything, but it's like, I still wasn't 100% sure about it. But the moment, like, Josie started getting weirded out, like, oh, she got that drawing, if I can't have you, no one can. And then the pig heart, I was like, the moment it happened, I was like, it's not Chuck. Chuck is being framed. You just assume because of the whole art thing. I'm like, poor Chuck. Immediately, my brain went to the janitor, just because the janitor happened to be around Josie a lot of times. So I'm like, that's a little creepy and weird. And every time they mention something like that, his head would pop up. And I was like, oh, maybe that's just him being an adult trying to listen out and, you know, look after the kids, because they're kind of his responsibility. As a principal, would be super pissed at him if he knew about things and didn't really act upon or do anything about it as an adult in a situation. But to me, I did not expect that twist of it being Cheryl potentially, because you see her drawing Josie and it's like it matches the drawing that Josie found, and it's like, okay. So for one, we have Josie not having her voice because obviously she had that nightmare of her throat being slit, but I guess that was just kind of like metaphorical. on many different levels, because like the Black Hood's going out their sinners and stuff like that, and Josie feels like a sinner because she's been doing this whole like solo thing behind the Pussycats' backs, which they found out about because a letter got sent to them. I was like, okay, this is Chuck again, isn't it? Because he did say earlier in the episode, he said like, oh, it could be me who's sending all those stuff, like that bear and those notes. It's like he was just trying to take credit of it for it, just so they could like bond a little bit. Obviously, the mayor got super pissed at him when she found them like dancing and having fun and everything, which is understandable considering who he is, and the fact is the stress that the mayor's under, all the death threats she's getting, and I'm worried about Josie, and considering Chuck's past. Once again, I'm curious to see what this means for Chuck going forward, because he's gonna be super pissed at Josie because it's like, you lied. You know, she only went along with that because of Cheryl, because Cheryl's the one that kept pushing for it, which in retrospect, it's like, that makes sense. Like, the question is, what is Cheryl up to? Two possibilities. One, by setting up this whole like solo deal, as well as messing up things between her and the Pussycats. Like, that could have been a purpose. Like, she's probably the one that sent her the notes. It could be like to ostracize, get her ostracized from the Pussycats, so that she could fill that role. That, or maybe the purpose is kind of a situation of like, she wants Josie to be desperate and alone so that they could be closer. Because the fact of the matter is, she drew that picture of Josie between her and Josie. So it's like, did like Cheryl kind of go all like fatal attraction on her or something like that? Is that what that's like alluding to? Is it like, oh, we're going to be the best of best friends? Obviously not exactly fatal attraction. Probably more like, I love you, man. Kind of along that same lines. Kind of a fatal attraction meets I love you, man, possibly type of vibe. So it could be either way. But the fact is that she's like, after what you did for me, or that whole situation, it's like, I owe you. So I'm like, it might be that. It might be the latter, not the former. Who knows? Maybe it's a combination of two. The fact is that she would help her with the whole like music thing makes me think like it is like a, no, like I'm good, like I want to be there for you, no one else. Like the fact is she's being like, oh, drink this tea because you don't have your voice. It's like, well, is Cheryl like ruining her voice somehow? Because like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just stress or whatever, just like, I don't know. I'm curious to see where that's going. I'm fine with it being either way. I'm slightly better off with it's just like, no, she's just doing it to get closer to Josie. But then again, I'm like, I don't know. Like, both of them are very scandalous approach to it, and I'd be fine with either one. So I'm so very interested to see where that all kind of goes going forward, especially for Josie too, because it's all about the fact that she lied and said it was Chuck. She had no proof that it was Chuck. And even Sheriff Keller is like, I don't know if it's actually Chuck. There's no evidence. Which the mayor's like, keep looking, you know, just because of her situation. And obviously it's one of those situations where it's like the mayor can kind of be like, whew, like a lot. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you feel like she's just a politician, that she doesn't really care about a lot of people. You feel like she kind of is very harsh as a mom too sometimes. But it's like ultimately everything she ever does, because she loves her child. She's probably had like a different, like the way she talks about it is like she's had a rough situation, the terrible things people say to her. I mean, it's not just her. Killer's in the like hot water too because of this whole Black Hood situation as well. So, which obviously didn't expect that with the other side of the story. The moment Betty mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, I thought so. Like when she was talking to Jug, like she had an idea, but she kind of let it go. I've been thinking the exact same thing since last episode too. It's like I said it last episode, like, it has to be a cop. It's like, how else did a Black Hood get to Phillips? Which apparently, like, there's not that many people who work in Riverdale's, like, sheriff department, because it's like Keller as a sheriff and one deputy, because it's like, oh yeah, the deputy was sick. It's like, is there only one deputy in this entire, like, police force? It's like, I don't actually remember. I'm sure there's not, but maybe at the time there was only one deputy there. I actually don't remember how many cops there are in total. Like, I don't remember. I feel like there's got to be more than just the sheriff and a deputy, right? I mean, it still doesn't change the fact is that it could potentially be a cop. Obviously, like this episode, we ended up finding out it wasn't Keller, but everything was set up to be like, oh, it could be Keller. But I think it was also because it's just like Betty wants answers. After everything that went down, it's like she thought she had an upper hand on Phillips. She needed to get not on Phillips, on the Black Hood. She needed to get that upper hand again. So she was just like, okay, this is basically, it was almost like Betty was twisting everything to fit the narrative of like, oh, this is what I think, so it's gotta be this. Just because she wanted to capture him so badly. She made the promise that she would, and she was confident about it, but then he went and killed Philip, so it just kind of caught her off guard a little bit, I think. Because for once, she thought she was doing the right thing. She was protecting Phillips. Like, he's not a good person, but he didn't deserve to be killed. So it's like, face the justice system. So it's a situation of like, she thought she had won, like I said, got the upper hand, turned out not to be the case. So I still kind of think that theory's valid, but after this episode, it kind of loses a little weight. And like I say, because everything's tailored to make it seem like it could be killer, but the fact is, he was a little too willing to do a lot of stuff that I didn't really get this episode. I mean, really quickly, something I was thinking about, but I forgot to admit, like, when it comes to that whole, like, twisting things, it's almost, she's kind of very much like her mom. Like, she switches a lot of stuff to, like, fit the narrative that she wants, which I guess, honestly, you could, I was about to go down a whole realistic route. I'm not even going to tackle that. That's going to turn ugly, and I don't want to. It's a whole parallel between the show and real life, and I think maybe that's a slight thing that's kind of being brought into the show because of that aspect, but I'm not going to dive too deeply into it. I apologize. It's all over the place. Me and tangents. The point I was going to make is like, he was too willing to do stuff. It's like, oh yeah, let me show you the cell, all this, and I'm like, would you really be showing this to a teenager? I mean, I don't care who, like, I guess, you know, Betty's one of your son's best friends, plus it's Alice's daughter, so it's like, you know, she's got that journalistic pull as well, so I guess maybe that's what that's all about. I don't know. And the fact is, he's like, oh yeah, here, check my lungs. I'm like, that's a little suspicious that you were willing to do that. But then later on, we find out what it was. I'm surprised, like, I was thinking we were both going to be wrong, because obviously Betty thought like, oh, he's a black coat. You have Veronica thinking he's having an affair. I love that whole situation of like, she's like, oh my God, you're working out. I was like, yeah, how do you do it? I mean, how do you know, when you have to you stay hard, and did that long pause. And she's like, you know, with you know, it's so hard with your wife going. I'm like, what? Like the moment she said it, I was like, I cut, like, if I could, like, you know, I was like, I had to turn away from TV. I was like, wow, I can't believe you just asked that. Wow. That was, wow. That has to be super awkward too for Kevin, because it's like you walk downstairs and there's like Veronica with your shirtless dad. Immediately I thought that's what was going to possibly turn into something like that. Like the thought, like it's a little weird that she was down there when he was working out. But now it's like we coincide and see why he was working out too. Because of the whole like situation of like, apparently he's having an affair with the mayor, which like did not see that coming. I figured he, like, I was kind of thinking about it here and there. I was like, nah, they're going to be wrong about something. Like he's secretly doing some investigating stuff. For some weird reason, I was like, oh, like the fact is he's leaving so late at night, coming back super early in the morning. I'm like, he's like in some Fight Club thing. That's how he deals with his stress or something. I thought it was going to be something like that. It turns out, no, just having an affair, which Veronica was right. Just she didn't expect it to be the mayor. Interesting enough, we learned a little bit about Kevin's mom in this episode. Apparently she's in the Navy and she's kind of stationed off somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know whether that's supposed to represent the fact is, well, his wife's away a lot, so he gets lonely, or whether the fact of the matter is this is something that's been going on for a long time or not. I mean, I guess it also is a little comfort, too, because they're both in this situation together. It's like they're both catching a little heat from this whole Black Hood situation. Also turns into the situation of should you tell Kevin or not. Obviously, as his best friend, Betty wants to, but it's like, this is one of those things that's better off, like, not saying anything, because like by saying things, it's going to be one of those situations of Kevin could respond either way. He could be happy about it, or he could be super upset, which more likely super upset, because it's like, how dare you get in my family's business? If it wasn't for you digging this up, like this wouldn't be out there. Like you made it into a whole situation. You know, it's going to turn into something ugly like that. So let him think his family's good, like everything's all right, you know. So also, it seemed like we learned that Kevin's a little like nerdy in this episode, because him and Veronica were like having a sleepover and everything, and he was playing something. I would assume it's something like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know whether it's, you know, his own campaign and everything. And you had Veronica be like, oh right, and it's like he seemed like he was really into it and everything. I was like, are you? Because Kevin never seemed like, I mean, to be fair, we don't really know that much about Kevin's hobbies and stuff like that, but it didn't seem like that was your cup of tea. But I mean, that was kind of an interesting, it was just kind of an interesting thing. I thought it was fascinating that they added that in there like that. But at the same time, too, like I said, the whole episode was kind of tailored to make it seem like, oh yeah, he's definitely the hood because of the Black Hood. But then immediately I was like, well, the fact of the matter, because I was expecting Betty to keep that and just walk away. I didn't expect her to actually get caught, and that turned into a whole situation of the sheriff explained himself. But the moment she pulled out Black Hood, I was like, well, the fact of the matter is that's most likely the Black Hood he took from Archie. I was like, I figured as much. And the whole murder board situation, I was like, well, the fact of the matter is I've watched enough Teen Wolf to know and see people with murder board. I mean, I'm in Teen Wolf. Let's not forget Barry from The Flash has a murder board. He had one for his mom's case, and obviously he has, not really a murder board, but a case board, I guess. It would be a bit, in this case, it would be a murder board. And Teen Wolf and Flash case is more, it is kind of a murder board. I think that's the general term for that type of situation. But obviously Barry's still doing that because he's got the whole like DeVoe situation going on. But nevertheless, so I wasn't too surprised with that. But once again, it turns into that whole situation of Betty's linking so much together. So obviously the episode ends with the Hood talking about the fact is that he's coming because, like, the fact is he's giving Riverdale a chance, but it's like there's too many sinners around. So it's like, I've got no choice, but I gotta raise my sword again. Which then turns into that situation of like, what sins is he aware of? Like, is it their sins, the group that we followed this episode? Because they've got sins, like Archie and Jughead doing what they did. Obviously, Veronica and Betty found out about the mayor's secret, and obviously there's going on with Josie and Cheryl. So it's like, who knows? Like, who's the next target? I'm so fascinated to see what goes down in the next episode. I was under the impression that the next week's episode was going to be the mid-season finale. I'm not sure. It didn't say anything. I remember looking, not unless it's like the week after next, that's the mid-season finale. I know because a lot of stuff is having its mid-season finale next week, at least amongst the superhero shows. I don't know if it's everything on CW, but so either way, I'm very excited to see what goes down in the next episode. Especially finding out if there's anything to this whole Riverdale Reaper thing, because that's also going to bring up something too. Because obviously, like Riverdale's past, we've learned little bits here and there. Obviously, between the Blossom family and Betty's family, I forgot. Coopers, right. I was trying to remember what their family name was. But the Coopers and the Blossoms actually at one point in time being one family that eventually, because of a blood feud, ended up splitting up into two different families. So that's something we still haven't really dived back into. Plus, there's a whole Riverdale Reaper thing. So it's like, could that be connected to the past with that? You know, because that's the only thing in Riverdale history we've ever really dived into like at all in the show so far. So I'd be kind of interested to find out more about Riverdale's history. You know, maybe this is something like fairly recently, whereas that was like kind of good chunk of time in the past. So I don't know, we'll kind of wait to see, as well as developments. Like I'm like I said, I'm so curious to find out is like what it is with Cheryl. Is it like I'm trying to replace you with the Pussycat Dolls, or is it just because I want you by myself? Because it's like Cheryl really doesn't have many close people. Like, once again, she had her clique that she hung out with, her two friends in season 1. See, I haven't seen hide nor hair of them. Like, she kind of bounces between people. It seems like Josie's the person that she's hanging around the most. Obviously, her relationship with Betty and Veronica's a little on the rocks, I'm sure, but it's like, I don't know. I'm curious to see. And also see where this whole Penny situation takes us. So many interesting developments. We would just have to wait to see where they all take us. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.